Good evening, Little Masters, and welcome to episode 179 of the Prancing Pony podcast, where we're going to talk about how you can still enjoy gathering with fellow Tolkien fans even during this pandemic.
And that's without even having to wear a mask. So folks, go ahead and pull up a bench in the common room. I'm Shaun Marchese, the real-life Lord of the Mark, and I am here with the man of the West, who might actually look better with a mask, Alan Sisto.
Oh, thank you so much, Shawn. I really appreciate that. You're making it easy to keep that social distancing up. I can tell. Yeah.
I'm just trying to keep you safe. That's all. Keep you far away
Thank
from
you
me.
so much.
Yep.
Appreciate that. Well, folks, tonight, as we open up season 5,
Amazing.
oh my goodness.
Amazing.
I am still stunned. As we open up season 5 of the Prancing Pony podcast, we're going to be talking to several guests about the Tolkien community and how organizations like the Tolkien Society and Mythgard Academy are keeping us all connected to each other and our fandom during this pandemic.
Now, for those of you joining us for the first time, welcome.
Yeah.
Here at the Prancing Pony podcast, we're working our way through J.R.R. Tolkien's Legendarium, a few pages at a time.
We study the details, make connections to other writings, talk about our favorite themes.
And we have a lot of fun along the way. So we're glad you've joined us.
And we hope you'll be glad you joined as well. But tonight, we're not diving straight into the books. Instead, we've invited several guests to join us here in the common room. So let's go ahead and get started by meeting our first guests. Now, today's episode is releasing on the last day of the Tolkien Society's Oxonmoot Online. And it's safe to say that without our first guests, well, Oxonmoot Online simply would not have been possible.
That's right. So why don't you please join us in welcoming to the Prancing Pony podcast, Mike Percival and Elena Davison of the Tolkien Society.
Hi.
Hello.
Welcome to you both.
Hello. Thanks for joining us.
Mike and Elena, why don't you start by telling us a little bit about who you are and especially what you do for the Tolkien Society.
So I'm Mike Percival. I joined the Society way too long ago, in 1983, I think. And I've been involved in various things ever since then. I was... first and foremost, actually started doing lighting at Oxonmoot. I think it was 1986. And I've been doing lighting and some sound and some other tech stuff and so on over the years. I have also been treasurer of the Society, and I was editor of Amon Hen for a couple of years, way back in the day. So a huge range of things, but somehow in a moment of madness, just about this time last year, I agreed to be co-chair for this year, little knowing what that would turn out to mean.
Yeah, indeed. Talk about signing up for more than you guessed, yeah.
Really breaking new ground this year, huh?
Yeah, we dreamt that we knew how it was going to work out, and we had all the plans for a normal Oxonmoot, and then we had to reinvent, but go on.
Indeed.
Elena.
Hi, so I'm Elena Davison. I've been with the Tolkien Society since 2012, the big event in Loughborough, which is where I joined, and also started volunteering at about the same time because they seemed like a very nice bunch and made lots of friends. And I've been chairing Oxonmoot since 2015 for about 3 years, and that was all, in-person Oxonmoots at St Anthony's College in Oxford.
Right.
Mike was on the team and my husband was on the team. And then, yes, last year in Ireland at Worldcon, my husband bought us very nice dinner, plied us with wine and said, "Why don't you two co-chair next year's Oxonmoot?" And we said yes. Yeah.
So we're blaming Matthew.
Definitely.
There you go.
Definitely. Well, Mike and Elena, this is your first time joining us on the Prancing Pony podcast, so we're going to ask you a question we ask every one of the guests who's ever joined us, and that is simply, tell us briefly, each of you, when and how you first discovered Tolkien's work.
So I was, about 11, and my godfather died, and his widow gave me two things. She gave me one of his Bibles. He was a clergyman, and that I treasure still. And she gave me a book token. And in the book token, it said, use this to buy something substantial to remember him by. Something like The Lord of the Rings.
Huh.
And I bought The Lord of the Rings, and the rest, as they say, is history. So I kind of, fell in love with it then, and subsequently fell in love with the people who love the books. And it's just been life-changing for me. I met my wife through the Society. I met most of my friends through the Society, and it's just been huge.
Oh, that's great.
It's really amazing to hear that, Mike, because we do hear that from time to time. I love hearing about couples that meet through Tolkien love, or,
Yeah.
great friendships that form through Tolkien love. And Alan and I have had some of those experiences, at least friendships, not our lives, but not romances, but friendships that have formed through Tolkien appreciation. And that's just such a great thing to hear.
It is. It really is. Well, Elena, tell us a little bit about how you first discovered Tolkien's work.
It was about the time that the films came out, the first films, in 2000, about. So
Right.
I was around 13 at that time. So it's about the right time to start reading Lord of the Rings as well.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I tried to read the book just when the films came out the first time, and I really couldn't get through. I got as far as The King of the Golden Hall, and I just couldn't continue. And then I watched the films and discovered that there were all these other things to look forward to, and genuinely got a better idea of what the world is about. And after that, I just carried on reading. And today, The King of the Golden Hall is one of my favorite chapters. So
Yeah.
that's luck. And speaking of just couples in the Tolkien Society, I also met my husband through the Tolkien Society.
That's awesome.
Wow, that is great.
There is a joke about the Tolkien Society being a dating and marriage agency there. Yeah, for some of us that really works.
Oh, that is great.
Oh, that's so cool. That's great.
It really is.
I love it. Well, you've both told us when you first got involved with the Tolkien Society. I would love to hear a little bit more about how you discovered the Tolkien Society, and maybe this is a very different answer for somebody in the UK versus those of us in the States. But
True.
I'd love to hear a little bit more about how you first heard of it and what first drew you to it.
So for me, I was at school with a friend, Julian Bradfield, who I think has for many years was quite important in Tolkien linguistic circles. And he was a member of the society while we were both still at school. And so he introduced me to the society, and then he went up to Cambridge a year before me. And the AGM that year was held in Cambridge, and he said, "Why don't you come along and come to the AGM and meet the Tolkien Society?" And well, I did, and yeah,
that's so cool. What about you, Elena?
I first heard about the Tolkien Society on the appendices to the films. Brian Sibley mentioned it in one of his bits that he did. And then some years later, when I moved to London, I remembered that such a thing existed. And I looked them up, and it turned out that in about 5 months from then on, they were having a big event. So I thought I'd join. And because I didn't know anybody, one of the emails said, if you don't know anybody, the best way to get to know people is to volunteer. And that's what I did.
Oh, wow. Right on.
That's so cool to hear. And I love that both of you joined through hearing about events that were coming up and just popped into those, and sort of the rest is history. So, Mike, you said you joined in 1986. How many moots have you participated in? How many moots have you volunteered for?
So I think I joined a bit earlier than that, but 1986 I think was the first Oxonmoot that I shone lights at.
Got it. Okay.
There's probably about half a dozen between then and now that I've not done anything at. So I would call it 40 somewhat.
Yeah.
And go on. I'm one of those people who, my wife would kill me for most of this, but I can't stop volunteering. If something needs doing, I'll do it. If there's chaos in the car park at a wedding, I'll go out and wave the cars into the right place. It's just how I am and what I do. And sometimes it would be good for me to stop, but.
Well, we're grateful for all that you do, that's for sure. At least for the things related to the Tolkien Society. I don't know about car parks. I can't help you there, but I'm sure somebody's grateful. And what about you, Elena? How many have you been able to take part in?
So since 2012, and I've missed one, I think.
Oh, okay.
So that's...
Yeah.
I've missed one, so that would be nearly 8 now. Wow.
Yeah,
okay.
I guess it would. Quite a few. Yeah.
Wow.
Well, nothing compared to Mike.
Well, no.
Yeah, but you've been chair for several years, whereas that's something that I'd not done until this year. So
I don't know why.
swings
The
and
position was available.
roundabouts, different things that we've each done, aren't there? So
Yeah.
all of which is to make the event run smoothly. So.
Well, we're incredibly grateful for it. And Mike, if I remember correctly, you talk about doing tech stuff. You were our tech contact last year when we did Tolkien 2019 and did a couple of recordings there.
We were constantly bugging you, if I recall correctly. Yeah.
We had to lean on you pretty heavily.
Pleased to help out with that and connect people together. But there's a whole bunch of folk who know a lot more about tech who sit in the background. But
we were grateful.
My key role is to coordinate people and make sure we get the right people in the right place at the right time. So.
Well, we managed to get an episode out, so you did that, clearly.
Yeah. And it was much appreciated.
Yeah. Now, for most of our listeners, about 70% of our listeners are here in the States, and many of them, of course, have not been able to actually attend an Oxonmoot in person. They might get to this year, but for our listeners who have not been to Oxonmoot, and honestly, that actually includes my co-host because
I know.
I know.
I haven't made it yet. I will.
Well, you made it to Birmingham, so that kind of counts. But tell us a little bit more about what Oxonmoot is and what it usually looks like. We'll get into what it looks like this year next, but what about typically?
So go on. Oxonmoot changes and evolves over the years when you've been around as long as I have, but it's the biggest event that the Tolkien Society runs on an annual basis. Mm-hmm. Not on the same scale as Tolkien 2019 was last year, but for the last few years we've been around 200 members, a little less last year after Tolkien 2019, but often more than that. I guess it started with a group of Tolkien Society members the year after Tolkien died, thinking it would be good to spend a weekend in Oxford and commemorate that. And ultimately, they did a remembrance ceremony at Tolkien's grave. And that end point has been one of the few constants through all the years that the Moot has been there. And it's a really important part of the event. We call it a Nyalier, and it is key and core. Over the years, we've built loads of stuff around that. So there's been an increasing educational element with a strand of talks and papers. There's always been a huge element of fellowship and fun. So we have an event on normally the Saturday evening with entertainments, costume masquerade. The last 8 or 10 years, we've run an opening night quiz. But the great thing about it is that we throw 200 plus Tolkien fans together in an Oxford college for a weekend, and everybody's got something in common. Everybody gets on really well together, and they just bounce stuff off each other, and they can be in the formal program if they want to, or they can wander off around Oxford and do other things if that's what they want to do.
Yeah, pretty amazing.
It sounds fantastic.
It was so much fun. When I went in 2018, it was a blast. Absolutely loved it.
So envious that you got and I'm happy that you got a chance to go, Alan, envious. And while I'm looking forward to this year's online event, I really can't wait to get to the next in-person one when I can.
Agreed. We need to be there.
So, Mike, you said you usually get around 200, maybe a little more, a little less at an in-person Oxonmoot. How many are you expecting this year for Oxonmoot Online?
Well, I'm looking at a Power BI report right now, and that says today we've got 336 attendees registered, and we've still got another 3 weeks to go. And since they don't have to make travel arrangements, it could well be substantially more than that by the time we get there. So, it's a good crowd. They're around 36 countries and all time zones from Australia to California and everywhere in between. So, quite an interesting game.
That's wonderful. I mean, if there's a silver lining to all of this stuff, I'm glad that at least, you're able to have more people join from all over the world. That's fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is.
One of the things about it being online is accessibility. So we've had quite a few people say that they would never been able to travel for, because they can't really go places. And this is the year they can be part of it. And that is really great.
Yeah. It is.
That's
certainly
wonderful.
For people for whom travel costs alone would be a problem, let alone, physical ability, the ability to travel and navigate the hallways of the college.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And it's been fantastic for our volunteers as well. We've got people in all kinds of places who have never previously volunteered for the Society doing stuff for us.
Yeah.
So we've got video editors in Belgium, and we've got a poetry reading lead in Chile. And I mean, it's just incredible the number of people who are doing stuff for us who wouldn't otherwise be able to. So again, it's been a real journey of bringing the Society together in a totally different way than has ever happened before. So
that's great.
That's great. Really is great. And that's a good segue into my next question, which is, obviously you've had to make quite a lot of changes to modify this event, which is usually about 200 people in person, and make it work online for who knows how many, at least 300, most likely more before it's all said and done. Why don't you tell us about some of the things that you're doing differently this year to bring the Moot online? And maybe if there are some things that you are used to doing in person, but you couldn't do this year, tell us about some of those and what you're, kind of what you're doing instead.
Well, really, I think we're aiming to do as much as we can of the things that we're used to. The main difference, of course, is not being able to actually see people and to socialize with people. And we are trying to recreate that feeling by having social rooms. So we will have the lectures and quiz and entertainment and everything like that. But one of the things we're trying to do is sit down together in a Zoom breakout room and just play games, chat, drink, laugh. Those are the things that really have you coming back year after year, the fellowship feeling of it. And that's the most important bit for us.
Yeah,
I agree. Yeah.
One big advantage that we get is actually there are 24 hours in a day. And although I kind of curse off Amazon for making the world round and giving us the grief of dealing with time zones, we've never at Oxonmoot before now run talks and papers after the quiz and the entertainments. But we're doing that this year because we've got folk in California and places like that for whom it's exactly the right time of day to be doing talks and papers. So what that means is we can run a single strand of talks and papers, albeit running for a long time, but we can make all of those things available to people in one strand. They don't have to choose you have to choose whether to stay up or whether to go to bed, but they don't have to choose which talk to go to. And of course, the other thing that we can do much more easily online is to record stuff so that our delegates can listen to things out of their own time zone. So that everybody who's at the event should be able to enjoy a lot more of it, albeit when they choose to, or engage with it live when it's on.
That's exciting because I know for those of us who have attended, and this is true even of Tolkien 2019, Shaun, so you're a part of this too. It's not just Oxonmoot. And that is that when you miss one paper because you want to go see another. Yeah. And now we'll have the opportunity to be able to go back and listen to those, separately. So that's great.
It's just an unending series of difficult choices usually because there's,
always
3 or 4 different tracks sometimes, and you really want to hear this paper, but there's another paper that you're missing. And the idea of being able to go back to those is just wonderful.
Yeah, we're excited about that.
That heartache out of it.
And of course, that requires some technology, and that leads into my next question, which is the last question here. You mentioned Zoom. What other technology platforms? Just from a lot of us are interested in that. How? What are the mechanics of this? How are you going to make some of these things work? What platforms are you using, and how are you accomplishing that?
So we're planning to run effectively two Zoom meetings. We'll be running a Zoom webinar that will host the talks and papers, the keynote talks, the panels, the entertainments, the quiz. So the things that are, if you like, more transmission, but with a Q&A facility.
Okay.
And then we'll be running separately a Zoom meeting where we will be running the more interactive activities. We're planning to make use of breakout rooms to create spaces for discussion, spaces for social rooms, spaces for games, all of those kinds of things. Our art show we're hosting on a platform called Kunstmatrix, which is a virtual art show platform.
Oh, wow.
So that's quite exciting. We've got quite a lot of stuff submitted for that, so we're really hopeful that will turn out well.
I bet it will.
But yeah, I mean, it's kind of interesting because although we've all made a lot of use of Zoom, we're slightly making this up as we go along about how it's going to work, and we're not going to get a chance to practice. So
no,
it's with a little bit of apprehension that we're running towards the event, and we're trying to think of everything. But yeah,
there'll always be something that you didn't think of. That's just the nature of things. But hopefully, a little improvisation, a little adaptation, you'll be just fine.
Well, there is some practice.
Good.
Are, our stewards are going to be key to really keeping things running smoothly. And we're doing practice sessions on Zoom so they can come to grips with the controls if they haven't used them before.
Good.
Or some are actually experts at Zoom and therefore they want to know more about the event and what they need to do. But the other thing, we're making good use of the Tolkien Society website to host some basic information there and any updates we need to make. And also, I think we're going to be using the app that we used for Tolkien 2019 as well for scheduling.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Yep.
That was a helpful app.
Yes, that will allow us to have all the presenter profiles and things like that in it. So that's another bit of technology that we're using.
Good.
That's great.
Good
to hear. So, Mike and Elena, you're already doing some learning and sort of trying things out as you go. Any thoughts about maybe taking any of these technologies forward into future in-person moots as well, or is it still too early to say?
Yes, probably, but there are obviously limitations. So, an in-person Oxonmoot has its own value, and we would like to keep it as many people as possible coming.
Yeah.
But I think there will be bits that we will be sharing online in the future. We just will need to work out how to do it. Because it's one thing when everybody is online. It's slightly different when it's only a percentage.
Yeah. That's true. Trying to run some sort of hybrid version is going to be even more difficult.
Yes.
Because, trying to do both at the same time. That makes sense.
Yeah, I think to me, it's a really exciting idea to try and work out how we make that work. But it's a really big but, because I know from stuff that I do in my day job that mixing remote delegates with physical delegates is really hard to get everybody's engagement right. So it's something we'll be thinking about after we've done Oxonmoot online, not in the next few weeks.
Fair enough.
Maybe that's a follow-up for next year then.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Well, Mike, Elena, thank you both so much for joining us. And
really appreciate your time today.
Yeah, and good luck with Oxonmoot. And by the time this episode comes out, I'm sure we will have found out that it was a smashing success. So thank you for all you're doing.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, for our next guest, we want to bring back friend of the podcast, current editor of Malorn, and host of the Tolkien Experience podcast, Dr. Luke Shelton.
Welcome back, Luke.
Great. Thanks for having me.
Always a pleasure to have you on. It's actually been, a little less than a year since we had you on the show last, but you have been a very busy man during that time, haven't you?
I've tried my best.
Well, we're hoping to catch up with all your recent activities in this segment, but I think we want to start by talking about Oxonmoot Online, which is going to be in its last hours when this episode releases. So tell us a little bit about the panel you're moderating for Oxonmoot this year.
So I was very fortunate to be asked by the Tolkien Society to kind of put together a panel that can showcase newer scholars who are engaging with Tolkien in interesting ways. So as part of that, I kind of went back to different sources that I had available to me and kind of really tried to pull an interesting cross-section of newer talent that I'm seeing come up. So I can just go ahead and share a couple of these different people with you if you'd like.
Absolutely,
sure.
Yeah.
One of our presenters, his name is Taylor Driggers. He is a PhD graduate, recent graduate from the University of Glasgow. And he really looks at the ways that fantasy literature can kind of reimagine Christian theology and religious practices in a lens that looks at it from a queer and feminist standpoint. So really, he's arguing that fantasy can be kind of like theology in drag, is kind of what he says.
Wow.
And so he's published a number of essays that focus on a larger fantastic canon, but he also includes Tolkien in some of that work.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, and it's a perspective that we don't have a lot of representation for in Tolkien studies proper, so I wanted to include him on the panel so we can hear this other viewpoint that we don't get in our kind of sequestered, different conferences very often.
Mm-hmm.
Another one that I'm really looking forward to is Mina Lukic. We actually interviewed her in the Tolkien Experience earlier this year. She is a PhD student, and she is in Serbia at the moment studying, off the top of my head, I think she is still working at the University of Belgrade, but I might be mistaken about that. But her PhD really looking at literature as a kind of cultural heritage. And so she has a survey where she's been asking Tolkien fans about their perspectives of Tolkien, not just as a piece of literature, but as a piece of culture and how they engage with him. And so really looking at how people engage with Tolkien's work using the lenses of kind of cultural memory or heritage studies.
Wow.
So it's, again, a different perspective that we don't hear very often. So that's another one that I'm really looking forward to.
That sounds, I mean, those both just sound just really amazing because, you know, as you say, it's Tolkien studies, I guess, has sort of always come at, and you probably know this better than we do, you could probably shed some light on this, but it does seem like Tolkien studies has kind of generally come at Tolkien's work from that sort of traditional medievalist point of view, that philologist point of view, and yet Tolkien's work is something that continues to attract new fans. It is something that is very alive and very current, despite the fact that it was written by a medievalist, many decades ago. And so it's really cool to see some of these new perspectives coming in. It sounds really exciting.
Yeah, and I think, we have this kind of historical reason why it's always been associated with kind of those more traditional perspectives, in that because Tolkien was interested in medieval things, he incorporated that into his work. So naturally, you have a lot of medievalists jumping on board very quickly.
Yeah.
But I think that's kind of been to our own detriment in some ways, in that I think because it was so taken over by people with that particular focus so early on, it kind of got the label as that's real Tolkien scholarship in a way. And so part of what I'm really excited about is opening the doors to more kinds of Tolkien scholarship and really trying to say, not only is this good scholarship and stuff that is really revolutionary in other fields and can be revolutionary in the Tolkien field, but also it's important scholarship for really the relevance of Tolkien.
Yeah.
If scholarship does not move beyond the classic studies, I think it'll still be around, but I don't think it'll be nearly as relevant as it would be if we start to embrace more of the wider critical discussion that's going on in academia and the world at large.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough.
That's great.
Well, Luke, you were also at Signum's virtual Mythmoot 7 about a month ago, which we were at as well. Since you're our only guest on this episode who was at both events, I'm curious if you have any insight into what's different about the approach that the Tolkien Society is taking for an online moot versus Signum's approach to one. Now, with that said, you don't have to give us a ton of detail on Signum's approach because we are having another Signum participant letting us know some of those details as well.
So I had a feeling this question might come up. And so I spent a little bit of time just kind of sitting down and really getting down to brass tacks about, okay, what's different about each? And I don't want to get overly technical, but I do think there are some important differences that I've found. It seems like to me, Signum put an emphasis on trying to create as much interactivity between attendees as possible if you were involved in the live event.
Yeah.
I know they had a second tier that wasn't live, and they didn't provide as many resources for that, but I'm talking about the live event here.
Right.
And I think they did a very good job of that. But they also intentionally used some less popular software than, say, Oxonmoot is going to use and other platforms have used.
Okay.
And I think that worked well for them in terms of their familiarity with the software and minimizing any kinds of technical difficulties or things like that.
Mm-hmm.
I do wonder, though, if swapping to a more popular platform would have helped that conference a little bit more in terms of the familiarity of attendees.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing about Mythmoot is that while they certainly did not charge nearly as much for the online conference as they do for their in-person conference, so in
Right.
that way, people who were going to go anyways did save money, their cost was still fairly high when compared to other online conferences that we're seeing.
Okay.
So, for instance, Oxonmoot, I think, is going to be about a third the price of Mythmoot, maybe a little bit less. And so what I know so far about Oxonmoot, and I kind of have some inside information because I am part of organizing an aspect of it. I don't have nearly as much as some of your other guests will have, but I do know that they already have probably 3 times the attendees, and their attendees seem like they're going to be a more diverse collection.
Oh, wow.
So I think that perhaps price point and popularity of software are 2 really important considerations when we're talking about online events like this.
Mm-hmm.
I will mention that I don't know what Oxonmoot is going to do other than just have those presentation platforms. I don't know if they'll offer additional venues of interactivity like chats and things like we saw at Mythmoot.
Right, like with the Slack channels and things like that, where
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of participation. Yeah, it is interesting just seeing the 2 different approaches, and it'll be interesting. Since we're recording this before Oxonmoot is happening, it'll be interesting to see how the 2 approaches compare. And I think it's really an interesting time to be a Tolkien fan, isn't it? Because we're seeing all these organizations kind of step into the 21st century, really being forced to. I feel like there's going to be a lot of learning that organizations like Signum and the Tolkien Society are going to be doing about what works and what doesn't work. And I think a lot of that is going to inform not only future online events, even once this whole pandemic thing has moved on, but also maybe future in-person events as well. I love the idea of making things available to the public, either after the event or somehow so that this stuff is out there. I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I will have to say that I think Shaun Gunner, the chair of the Tolkien Society, has been really forward-thinking with this. We actually did their annual meeting live online a few months ago.
Yeah,
yes,
I remember that.
And he came out of that meeting pretty much the next day saying, I don't think we'll ever go back. Just because it was the best attended general meeting they'd ever had, and they were able to have members from all across the world in there.
Yeah.
Whereas in their typical face-to-face meeting, they're normally only getting the UK membership.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
That makes sense. I mean, it's a single-day event. It's one thing to travel, overseas to do a 3-day Oxonmoot. It's another thing to try to get over there. Well, not that you could right now, but even in a normal year without a pandemic, traveling for those of us here in the States, for instance, to go to attend the AGM just wouldn't make any sense. Economically, wouldn't be feasible.
Yeah. Well, Luke, speaking of changes in the Tolkien Society, this year you were also named the new editor of Malorn, the Tolkien Society's annual scholarly journal. So first of all, congratulations.
Well,
I know Alan and I are both super excited about your involvement in that. Why don't you tell us a little bit about some of your plans for Malorn? What's your goal now that the publication is in your hands?
Well, I took over from a very adept editor, and she did a great job the last several years starting to make Malorn into a peer-reviewed journal. Unfortunately, it turns out that reputation didn't really get very far in terms of people realizing that it had made the transition from a fan journal into a peer-reviewed journal. And so as I step in, my vision is to really take it into a full peer-reviewed journal that has the reputation for being that. And so as part of that, I am working very diligently to get it into some online research databases that students and educators can use. I am putting together an editorial review board full of influential Tolkien scholars that can do peer reviews and help run and advise the journal in certain aspects, and really just trying to kind of make it a modern well-respected peer-reviewed journal in all aspects.
Hmm.
So we are underway in both of those processes. I am close to finalizing an editorial review board and hoping that we can make an announcement about that sometime around Oxonmoot. And then as far as getting in with some databases, we have signed contracts recently with JSTOR and EBSCO. So that should get us
excellent.
into a lot of different libraries as soon as we finish the paperwork.
That's great. That's got to be exciting.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's exciting for me as somebody who researches Tolkien a little bit for the podcast. I'm sure for, anybody who's really studying Tolkien seriously, I think it's going to be a really big change for them. And I'm sure they'd say thank you for that.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because, my personal research is in dealing with the ways that people respond to Tolkien's work. And as part of doing that, I very quickly became aware that a lot of Tolkien fans are very interested in secondary literature, in writing about Tolkien.
Mm-hmm.
And the more engaged they are in different Tolkien communities, the more willing and eager they seem to want to interact in those things. I've even noticed in your own Reddit group, I see people often asking for secondary references where they can research one thing or another that they're interested in.
Yeah.
And so part of taking over at Malorn is realizing this is a journal funded by a fan group. And it's this fan group that wants and is thirsty for this kind of information. And so why not give them the best information I can possibly give them so that they are really aware of the conversations actually going on in academic circles about Tolkien.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it, and I'm really looking forward to the way that the journal is situated within a fan community because it allows for that kind of blurring of the line that I always like to do between academia and fan approaches, fan scholarship, that kind of thing.
That's excellent.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, it really is. Shaun and I know firsthand what it's like to be a member of the Tolkien Society outside Britain. And we've noticed a really welcome shift, like we've just talked about, like with the AGM being online, towards embracing the international fandom in a big way using those technology platforms. Now, as an American with that important role in the Tolkien Society, you probably have a little inside knowledge that you can share with us. What changes have you seen in the Society over the past few years? And do you think that they're starting to find new ways to engage with the international membership? And how do you expect this trend to continue in the future as you're going forward?
As a member of the Tolkien Society, I've noticed over the past few years that there has definitely been a growing realization of the need to incorporate more voices and more perspectives. And I think that's really important. And honestly, I don't think we can take full credit for that shift ourselves. While it's true that the Tolkien Society has been trying to reach out for several years, there have been a number of key moments lately that have really highlighted the need to do this with more, let's say, passion and more urgency than was previously around. And so I am hoping that we will see, and Oxonmoot will help us demonstrate our real commitment to seeking out those voices that have historically not had a place in Tolkien communities and lifting them up and trying to incorporate them more than we have done in the past. And I see this inspiration that we've had from people of color calling us out, really, because we needed that, as a way to light a fire under the society to reach out to a more diverse space, not only dealing with issues of race or ethnicity, but also internationally, to seek out those voices from different geographic locations that in the society's history they haven't done because it was a smaller society in the UK. So that's kind of where they focused. So they definitely have put a lot more emphasis on reaching out internationally lately.
Good.
Especially with hiring me. They also pulled together a team, both for Malorn and for Amon Hen, and both of those teams have a lot of international representation.
Oh, good.
And an emphasis on pulling in work from an international contribution pool.
Well, and I can definitely say, as an American member of the Tolkien Society, I can definitely see some changes, and it's really, while it's always been good to be a member of the Tolkien Society. I feel like there's just never been a better time to be a member of the Tolkien Society outside the UK, and hopefully that continues to be the case not only for people all over the world, but as you said, Luke, people of all different perspectives, around the world. So it's really a very exciting time.
I agree wholeheartedly.
Awesome. Well, Luke, thank you so much for coming to talk to us a little bit today. It's really great to hear from you always. And best of luck with Oxonmoot. By the time this releases, hopefully you will have had a smashing success of a panel.
Well, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you, Luke. Well, before we bring in our next guests, we wanted to remind you to visit our website, theprancingponypodcast.com, as we've made some pretty significant improvements recently.
We absolutely have. Now, we still have all the good stuff there that you're used to, show notes and outtakes, Prancing Pony Ponderings, as well as our online storefront where you can get PPP shirts, mugs, stickers, and a lot more.
Including, by the time this airs, actually, even by the time we're recording this, our new Feanor Pinata design from Prancing Pony Podcast artist Megan Collins. It is a phenomenal design, folks.
Yes,
you will love it.
Please.
Yeah, it's great stuff. Now, one of the best resources we have on our website is our library page. After all, we love the books here at the Prancing Pony Podcast, and we want to make sure you can get your hands on any of the books that we mention here.
Now, we may talk about a lot of different Tolkien-related stuff on the podcast, but at heart, Alan and I are fans of Tolkien's books and books about Tolkien. That's why we have the library page with links to every book we've mentioned on the show.
Now, we do make a few pennies from the purchases you make from those links, so thank you for your support.
Now, before we talk to more guests, we want to remind you about a recent sponsor that we're thrilled to have on board the Prancing Pony Podcast, Dice Envy.
That's right. Now, Dice Envy was established in 2017 with a mission to provide gamers and hobbyists with pocket-sized tokens of creativity, they say, that will stand out from the rest. And I've got to tell you, they do exactly that.
Oh, they do, man. Folks, I got the Mordred dice. These are metal. They're gorgeous black and copper dice. And I like them so much that I ordered dice sets for my kids when we finally start them tabletop gaming. Because I don't want them touching my dice.
No, not the metal ones. They might hurt you.
Yes, they might. But
I don't want to get killed by a hobgoblin, Dad. Throw the metal dice at you.
Throw the metal dice. Yeah, right. You can put the metal dice in the sling and use that.
Ooh.
But Dice Envy made it really easy to find stuff that they would like too, because they have over 150 unique styles to choose from.
That's true. Resin, wood, metal, and even, believe it or not, stone dice are available.
Yeah.
Now, you can get subscription boxes for as little as $15 a month, and that includes limited print dice that are made exclusively for those subscribers.
And new dice designs are added every week. So head on over to diceenvy.com. That's DICEENVY.com, and use the promo code PONY to get 10% off your entire order, including the subscription boxes.
Yeah. So do you want premium dice for your next tabletop game without breaking the bank? Look, Dice Envy's incredible selection is going to have your friends rolling a willpower check simply to avoid becoming too envious of you. So go to diceenvy.com and use promo code PONY. That's diceenvy.com, promo code PONY.
And we also want to tell you about something very exciting going on next summer that you ought to know about. Solomon Schmidt, author of the History Bites book series, is hosting a spectacular 8-day tour of England and Scotland. That's from the 2nd to the 10th of July, and it's themed around J.R.R. Tolkien, C.S. Lewis, and J.K. Rowling.
That's right. Now, on this incredible tour, you're going to get to visit iconic sites related to the life and works of these English fantasy authors: the Eagle and Child Pub, Platform 9 3/4, Oxford University, and C.S. Lewis's own home.
And not only will you see those author-related locations, but you're also going to see world-famous sites like Big Ben, the Tower Bridge, Buckingham Palace, Edinburgh Castle, and Stonehenge.
You're going to stand atop the majestic cliffs at Old Harry Rocks on the southern coast of England, and you're going to even get a first-class ride on the Jacobite steam train through the beautiful Scottish Highlands.
And you're going to eat at some of the finest restaurants in the UK, too. You'll even spend a night at the beautiful Hotel Miramar in Bournemouth, where Tolkien himself stayed.
Wow. Now, look, Solomon has put together this once-in-a-lifetime trip, so don't miss out. There is limited space available. So register for the tour today at historybites.com/tour. That's historybites.com/tour.
Well, our next guest is chair of the Tolkien Society, and he has been since 2013. He's very passionate about reaching a global audience, and he's seen the society grow both in numbers and in global reach during his tenure. Now, we've both had the pleasure of meeting him last year in Birmingham, which was a lot of fun, And we're thrilled to be welcoming him back to the Prancing Pony podcast. So, folks, please welcome Shaun Gunner.
Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be back.
Oh, it's absolutely our pleasure to have you. So thank you for coming back.
Absolutely.
Now, we first had you on the show after I met you 2 years ago back at Oxonmoot. And we were hoping to catch up with you at Tolkien 2019 last year, but you were understandably a little on the busy side. Still, you may not know this, we managed to get your hearty laugh or guffaw in the background of our chat with Ted Naismith. So you did end up on the show anyway in some small way.
He was technically on the show, yep.
Yeah, yeah.
I hope Ted didn't mind.
Oh, I don't think he did at all.
Not at all.
So tell us, Shaun, what's been going on in the Tolkien Society since last year's big birthday bash?
Well, we obviously had a fantastic event at Tolkien 2019 with 550 people there. And that was a unique and unprecedented celebration of everything to do with the Society and everything to do with Tolkien. Since then, I thought we were going to have a quiet year. And then, of course, COVID-19 happened. So we were sort of carrying on with normal activities in terms of Malorn and Amon Hen. And in particular, I don't know, you've probably seen that we revamped Amon Hen earlier this year, completely.
Yes,
absolutely. Yeah, we'll be talking a little bit more about that in depth later too. Yeah.
Oh, excellent. And then of course, COVID-19 happened, and that threw all of our events out because we booked venues and everything for Oxonmoot this year, which today should have been the final day as we're recording. Should have been the final day of Oxonmoot in person. But we've had to cancel everything. So our focus has really shifted quite significantly in actually how do we deliver Tolkien online in a virtual world to as many people as possible. Also, that's come with lots of challenges. Actually, as an organisation, we are about 36% of our membership is from the UK, but nearly 100% of our volunteers. So actually, how do we begin to shift our organisation actually within the leadership to become more international and therefore be able to deliver better events around the world and also take their perspectives into the society as well. So that's how we're beginning. We started with the seminar in July. So our seminar is usually in person. We held it online, completely free, completely open. We had 400 people attend that, which was phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. And the feedback has been outstanding about the event. And we will be publishing the papers from the seminar in our next Peter O book out in the new year. And then, of course, with this Oxonmoot, we're currently close to about 350 people attending Oxonmoot this year. And this isn't a free event. This is a paid for event. So they're actually, they're really putting up their money. They really want to be there. So this isn't just like people wandering in off the street, turning up on YouTube, looking at the seminar. This is people. They've really volunteered for this. So this is going to be a proper experiment for us about actually how effective can we deliver it. So most of our membership is in Europe and the Americas. I say that because the USA is now the number one country for membership. It actually overtook the UK for the first time in the Society's history in July. But we have a lot of members, obviously, in Canada, but in Latin America in particular. So Brazil, Argentina, Colombia, Bolivia, Venezuela, we're seeing a lot of growth in membership there. So the way we structured Oxonmoot is to ensure that we're reaching those time zones as well as the European ones. But again, that's the same challenge as an organisation, running an event. If with UK people, but them staying up till 4:00 in the morning isn't ideal. So it's that still having to have that kind of that balance in the organisation, but being really conscious that we need to reach new audiences and we need to make sure that the Society is doing that. Our mission, our charitable objective, is to educate the public in and promote research into the life and works of J.R.R. Tolkien.
Right.
And that is a global ambition. That is not an England or UK ambition. That is global.
Right. Right.
So we are really conscious of the need to do everything that we possibly can to try to reach that audience. And some years ago, when we set up the Tolkien to the World project, that was part of that aspiration to help bring Tolkien to wider audiences. And I think actually what's happened with COVID-19, we're seeing as a society, this has been a real kind of kick to us to fast track some of our ambitions in doing this, in actually running events online, running events potentially in other countries outside of the UK, making sure that we are bringing as many people into the society, as well as making sure that the society is reaching out to as many people as possible.
Yeah. Well, Shaun, I know that it's presented some logistical challenges to bring Oxonmoot online, but I have to say, on behalf of all of those of us who've never been able to attend Oxonmoot before, I'm actually very thankful. I know many people are very thankful because we wouldn't have been able to attend this year, even if it weren't for the pandemic. So it's definitely opening the event to a lot of people who wouldn't be able to attend otherwise.
Yeah.
And you say that this is something that you've been doing for a while now, right? I mean, I know you've done other online events throughout this year, but it does seem like your focus since you've been chair of the society has really been to grow the society into more of a global community. Is that right?
Yeah, it is. So when I took over the society as the chair, we had about 600 members and about £7,000 in our bank account. And I remember at the time,
my goodness,
we had discussions at the time about whether we even had enough money in terms of cash flow to pay the deposit for Oxonmoot that year. Today we have 2,500 members, and somewhere approaching £200,000 in terms of financial reserves. So we have completely shifted what the society's capability to do
that's
stuff.
Huge.
That was
wonderful.
one of my big challenges that I faced, because I said that actually, in order for us to be able to do things, we all want to do things. We want to do things for our members. We want to do things for the public, and most importantly, for the memory of Tolkien. That's what we want to do. But in order to do that, we have to have money, right? And in order to have money, we need to be an outward-facing organisation. So right from the start, in my first year, I completely revamped our website to make sure that it was open and welcoming, and people were actually really, this sounds really obvious now, but people were able to join the society easily and automatically.
Yeah, that's important. That's super important. Yeah.
And even when I became chair, it was incredible the number of people who had the impression that you'd almost have to be vetted or pass a test to become a member.
Wow.
Genuinely.
I'd still be on the outside looking in.
genuinely quite a frightening prospect. And I think
just
it was a sense that there are gatekeepers in the Tolkien community that wouldn't let people into society. So I wanted to try to break that down. And you can see now in terms of our social media output, because we basically had no social media output before I became the chair. In terms of our social media output, because we've got pushing 100,000 followers on Twitter, and we're reaching just so many people now. And I've made this point right off from the off when I became the chair. If we want to reach the most people, we need to be the most online, because that's how we can, in terms of cost efficiency, we can reach millions of people, and we do now. I can, hand on heart, I can say that the society reaches millions of people online every year, and that's why I kind of do all of the things that we do. And in terms of digital events, this isn't new for us. So we've had a few forays into this in the past. So, for instance, when Beowulf was released, we'd had an online Beowulf launch party with a number of scholars and fans. So we have kind of done bits and bobs here and there in the past. I think what COVID-19 has made us realise is, first of all, it's kind of accelerated some of those plans. And I think seeing how the seminar panned out earlier this year with 400 people attending was a great example. And actually, with 400 people, and we received many donations at the time. So it wasn't actually, we actually, in a funny way, we made money from it, because we received quite a few donations, which was unexpected. We thought we weren't really going to get that much in terms of donors, and we were happy not to. We thought to ourselves, we don't actually need kind of the money from this as an event per se. There are going to be challenges financially for the society in the next year, particularly if COVID causes some very harsh the sessions, we would expect to lose members as a result of that. Right now, most certainly in Europe, I think the situation in the USA is less clear, but certainly in Europe, the governments have done a lot of work, put a lot of money in to cushion the blow for citizens. But when those cushionings end, which they obviously will, there may be a financial impact to the society then in terms of us being able to get new members and get people to our events. But what we realise is
all the more reason why people should sign up for multiple year deals when they do, right? Yeah. I'm stuck now. I gave you guys a 3-year membership, so even if I ran into financial hard times, I couldn't. Why would I cancel? You already have my money.
Exactly. Thank you for the advert.
Invoices in the mail, Shaun. I'm just teasing.
But it's made us really focus on the fact that we do have this very global membership now, and so we need to be servicing that global membership and encouraging them to attend our online events and encouraging the society to host those online events. I know that Alan, you came to Oxonmoot 2 years ago, and you had a fantastic experience, and we would love it. We would love it.
Go again right now.
He's been rubbing it in my face ever since, too.
Ever since, yes.
and we would love it if every member could come to Oxonmoot, but we know that of course, location and finances don't allow that, and time, frankly, don't allow that for lots of our members. But this is a good opportunity, and when this COVID is over, when it's gone, I don't think it's ever going to quite be over, but when it's gone, the society won't go back to the way it was before. We're not going to go back to having Oxonmoot completely private in an Oxford college, where I think we will always now have an element of online presence. Now, there's going to be a balancing act in terms of, because event organising online and event organising in person are completely different skill sets and completely different programs, the way you organise that. But having said that, Shaun, people like you who haven't been able to come to Oxonmoot, we do want to give you some aspect of that experience, and we'll see how Oxonmoot this year goes, being completely online. I myself will be going to Oxford to do some filming in preparation for Oxonmoot. But but what I want to do is make sure that and all that filming, all those events, that tries to give people a sense of togetherness and a sense of the warmth and fellowship and love that we have within the society. So that's what I'm hoping we're going to achieve from Oxonmoot. And of course, all of this ultimately helps to achieve our charitable objective and our mission to educate the public in and promote research into the life and works of Tolkien.
Yeah.
Well, this year has also seen the Tolkien Society bring on new editorial teams for its 2 major publications, Amon Hen, the bi-monthly bulletin, and Malorn, the annual scholarly journal of the Tolkien Society. Now, at least one of these editors, and quite possibly both, but Luke Shelton, who's now editing Malorn and who we spoke to earlier this episode, is based in the U.S. So like we talked about earlier, you've done a really good job of dispelling this notion that the Tolkien Society is some sort of, British-only, must get past the gatekeepers sort of organization. And you mentioned, of course, that this is something that from the get-go, from your time as chair, it's something you've been intentional about, making people all over the world aware of and interested in the society. Talk to us a little bit about this move with Amon Hen and Malorn. And then additionally, how do you see Oxonmoot Online building on that vision of expanding to the world?
Yeah, so with Amon Hen and Malorn, we had kind of quite a unique opportunity because the editorships of both fell vacant at the same time.
Okay.
So what we actually did was we ran a combined recruitment process for both, and it was completely open. And we actually did it blind. We didn't know. We asked everybody to submit. We asked them a series of questions about what they felt about the publications, where they wanted them to go, what the focus should be, those sorts of things. And we then shared those answers with all the trustees of the society, and without any kind of biographical information alongside them. So we picked them blind, pretty much.
Good.
And the consequence of that is we have 3 people working on Malorn and 3 people working on Amon Hen. And of those 6 people, only 1 is in the UK. The rest of them are one's in Norway, one's in Argentina, one's in Canada, and 2 in the US.
Wow. Oh, that is international.
That's amazing, yeah.
That's great.
So it was completely... Because what we realised, in the past, every single Amon Hen editor has been from the UK, and Luke's immediate predecessor was actually from the US, but all the ones before that were also all from the UK.
Okay.
But the point I made to the board and to the members is to contact contributors, to edit a publication, to lay out and design a publication and do all of that work. It doesn't matter where in the world that you are. It just so happens that for members who choose to receive printed publications, we are printing them in the UK, because we obviously have a long-standing deal with a printer.
Right.
But there's no reason why any of those people who work on the publication have to be from the UK. Certainly, it's never been the case that our contributors were restricted to being British. So why should the editors be restricted to being British? And as I say, we had a completely open recruitment process, and actually we didn't directly aim to have a very international editorial board. So we wanted to do that. We very specifically, both publications previously had just one editor. We were very specific in wanting to have a group of people editing. It just so conveniently happens we ended up with 3 and 3. But that was a plan to have a board. We did hope to have a very international representation. I don't think we could have hoped for much better than the one that we got, as it happens, because it is an impressive representation. And I've said before about the Society's membership, our prime membership areas, obviously the UK, the US, wider Americas, and wider Europe, and all those regions are represented across the editorial boards. Yeah. What that's doing is that's really helping to diversify the content and the output of those publications. So if we take Amon Hen primarily, with Amon Hen we've had a complete revamp. It has completely changed. It's almost unrecognisable from the Amon Hen that came before in terms of visually.
It really is.
Content,
it is.
The content is very similar. Well, it has similarities, but even that is changing and will continue to change. But visually, it's completely different. One of the things that really makes that difference is, first of all, we've got 3 people from 3 different countries with 3 different experiences, and they are much younger than you would probably expect. I would imagine the average age, I don't actually know their ages, but I imagine their average age hovers somewhere in the late 20s of the 3 of them.
Okay.
That brings a level of dynamism and creativity and new ideas, but perhaps we haven't had in the past. I think that is making a big difference. There's also a very deliberate push within Amon Hen now to embrace a much more diverse collection of artwork and content. So we're seeing now artists that are depicting Tolkien characters in a much more diverse way. There was the cover of the most recent Amon Hen does not have Bilbo as a very white English guy, as an example. We're also seeing content that is very different from the content we've had in the past. So we've had in there examples of tabletop gaming in the previous issue. Again, that's something that is very unexpected, very different from the type of content that we've had in the past. But what we're doing is we're trying to reflect the diversity of interest in Tolkien in the publication. So we will keep on pushing down this road, keep on trying to represent the fullness and the breadth and depth of the Tolkien community. And the fantastic thing with Amon Hen is I know that the editors are frankly struggling to be able to fit in all the content they're now being supplied. But the great thing is the members get it every 2 months. They get Amon Hen every 2 months without fail. So there will always be an opportunity for people to submit to Amon Hen and get their contributions received. And it's fantastic when I'm looking at the responses on social media to the new look Amon Hen. I can really see and feel the impact that is having on people. So I'm a huge fan of the new Hammerhen, and all credit to Matt and Kate and Anna for making it work. In terms of Malorn is in a slightly different category. So actually, in the early days of the society, Malorn was the publication of the society, and over the years it's morphed into the journal, and it never quite made a full morph into the journal. It's still held for a long time. It's still held some of this kind of hangover from the past. So even up until 5 years ago, there was still creative poetry in Malorn, for instance, which you wouldn't expect in an academic journal ordinarily.
Right.
Now, the previous editor, Ro, she made a big effort with having peer reviews of articles, which was a good step, and Luke has supercharged this effort now. So what we're seeing with Malorn is he's made it open access again, and this is part of our drive to make sure the society is open to the world, and we're making sure that Tolkien is open to the world. You know, we are not protecting Tolkien. We're not here to defend Tolkien. We are here to share Tolkien and for people to research him and learn about him. And sometimes that might be critical. Sometimes that might be very supportive and loving. But that's not kind of the society's place. Isn't to just to act as a defender to Tolkien. So that's when Luke is sharing Malorn. Open access. Anybody in any university will be able to see Malorn. That's a big change from the past. And then additionally to that, he's making sure that everything is peer reviewed. So whatever goes in there is properly, critically assessed to ensure its quality and ensure that it is properly researched. So I think that is a big change in terms of how Malorn is going, because it's providing a genuine outlet for Tolkien scholars to be properly critiqued and ensure that their research stacks up. So they can turn round to snobby professors in their English departments that say that Tolkien isn't proper literature, and show them that they've been published in Malorn, an organisation that has got quite an impressive list of people who peer review for it, and their articles and their work have been found to be of top quality. And I'm proud that the society is doing this, and we will keep on doing stuff, and we will keep doing more things. As I say, for many years, the society felt like it was very comfortable just being a UK-based organisation, doing UK things, and having a quite a moderate membership and a moderate income. I'm not comfortable with that, because we owe it to Tolkien to bring him to as many people as possible, and it is incumbent on me and all the leadership of the society to work out how we do that best. And if there's you guys or any of your listeners who've got good ideas about what the society could be doing or how we could be doing it, I'm all ears, because right now we're all sitting around at home figuring out what kind of the future of the society is going to look like and what our events are going to look like next year. So we've got a good amount of time to be thinking of new ideas and how we can deliver those.
Yeah.
So, Shaun, this stuff is all really exciting for me, because I feel like for a long time, Tolkien fandom has had a bit of a reputation for a certain kind of fan. And maybe I'm overgeneralizing a little bit, but I think that Tolkien fandom, more so than a lot of other fandoms, has sort of had this reputation for having people who are, very scholarly, very obsessing over the languages and the maps and things like that. But I notice in your answer to the previous question that with the 2 publications of the Tolkien Society, you're kind of covering all bases. You've got that serious scholarship in Malorn, but with Hammerhen, you've also got a way to touch on the other types of fandom as well, the many ways in which people interact with sort of Tolkien fandom, whether it's art or games or, podcasts or whatever. And
that's true.
And
too.
so I really like the sort of 1-2 punch that you've got with the Tolkien Society publications. What do you see coming in the future for Tolkien fandom in terms of different ways for people to sort of express their fandom?
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting question. For me, you look at the Tolkien Society Awards are a really good example of this. How they've changed. So I introduced the Tolkien Society Awards back in 2014, and they've slowly changed to, as you guys are well aware, to change the categories in order to allow for things like podcasts and YouTube channels. I think YouTube within English-speaking countries is still an area of quite big growth, I think, for Tolkien fandom, and I think we're going to see a lot more there. And in particular, of course, the Amazon TV series is going to change the shape and nature of Tolkien fandom as well. And to a certain extent, we're not going to be able to predict that. I also get this sense that we're going to see more creativity from the fans. I think there is going to be a much stronger desire, like for people producing their own podcasts, people producing their own YouTube channels. I think we'll see a lot more artwork from people, a lot more fan fiction. I think it's going to be quite an exciting time. You also have to remember, I sort of hinted on this earlier on, the big growth areas in our membership are in Latin America and in Eastern Europe. And the reason for that is actually lots of publications, lots of Tolkien publications that us English speakers are taking for granted, they are just now being published in those countries. I noticed recently the Shaping of Middle-earth, the 4th volume of the History of Middle-earth series, has only just this year been published in Hungarian. And if you're a Hungarian fan of Tolkien, this is incredibly exciting, because not only have you now got Shaping Middle-earth and you understand actually how Tolkien created the geography of Arda, but you also know that you've got 8 more volumes that haven't yet been published in Hungarian. And I think the shape of the fandom will shift away from that kind of Anglo-American, Western Europe base that we kind of currently have, into having a much more diverse representation, such as with more Eastern European people, with more Latin American members. I think that's going to really diversify what the fandom looks like and bring new perspectives in about actually how do we celebrate Tolkien. And as this happens, and as this shift is, because it's sort of early days on this is beginning to happen and we're seeing it, and I'm witnessing it particularly strongly in Eastern Europe in lots of ways, I think the society has to ensure that it is representing that. So to a certain extent, I've sort of dodged your answer directly, but this is how I see things going. I think we have much more digital, much more creativity, and much more diversity. On the diversity point, I do want to challenge this, because we have heard some reports within the Tolkien community of people acting as gatekeepers against diverse representations of Tolkien characters in particular. I find this deeply, deeply frustrating.
Right.
And I say this as someone who is, a white middle-class guy from the UK, but there are other people who have images of Tolkien characters in their own heads and in their own hearts that are not of kind of white Western European characters, and that is perfectly fine and legitimate and something to be celebrated. It's really, really sad and tragic that there are people who feel like it is their goal in life to say that Sam was absolutely white and that's what Tolkien had in his head, rather than acknowledging that Tolkien's works have such a broad appeal that regardless of someone's background, they can read Tolkien's works and feel that it appeals and applies to them. And I think that is where these people who are defending Tolkien and understand why they do it, but where they are completely missing the actual headline. Because the actual headline is Tolkien's works have an applicability to anyone from any background in any culture. And I think that is a fantastic story we should be holding on to and taking. And, for me personally, I think I'm going to be becoming much stronger in terms of challenging some of those behaviours and attitudes in the Tolkien community. I think it's really important that we are outward looking and we represent the fandom the way the fandom is, not the way that some people want it to be.
Right.
Yeah, well said.
Well, and I love that you brought it back to applicability, which I think Tolkien himself would appreciate. So
yeah, that's the whole thing.
Great answer, Shaun. Thank you.
Oh, I didn't get this job by mistake,
There's a reason you're there, And let me tell you, for Tolkien fans around the world and for Society members around the world, we're glad you're there. So thank you.
Oh man, he didn't get the job accidentally, like you and I did, right, Shaun?
Right? Yeah.
This kind of
these guys who just produce their own podcast,
yeah,
just do their own
Well,
thing.
I mean, I still sometimes every single year, because I'm in year 8 now. This is my 8th year. Every single year when I stand for re-election, I'm convinced that they're going to throw me out, and so far they haven't done so.
Well, just wait.
I'll tell you what, it'll happen.
Here I am being all nice to him about how glad we are he's there, how great a job he's doing.
We are. I'm teasing.
Alan.
Well, thank you so much, Shaun. I'm telling you, these are some great answers. We really enjoyed having you on the show. We need to get you back on again one of these days. Maybe it'll be an in-person event when this COVID-19 thing is dealt with, and we're hopefully able to see you at Oxonmoot 2021.
That would be fantastic, because as we've always said, as much as we're looking forward to Oxonmoot Online, there is no substitute for going in person if you can.
Yeah.
And we're looking forward to seeing you again in person someday soon.
We are.
Thank you both for having me, and I look forward to welcoming you by the hand at Oxonmoot in the future.
That would be nice. That'd be wonderful.
Be
all right. Well, thanks again. We'll talk to you next time.
Thanks, Shaun.
Well, our last guest needs no introduction, but he's going to get one anyway, whether he likes it or not.
And given who he is, we might just take an hour to closely examine the details of his CV, one word at a time.
That's right. Our final guest tonight is the founder and president of Signum University and Mythgard Institute, where he hosts Exploring the Lord of the Rings and leads the annual Mythmoot.
He's also been a source of inspiration and a good friend to us here at the Prancing Pony Podcast.
Mm-hmm.
We're so glad to have him back on. Here he is, the Tolkien professor himself, Dr. Corey Olsen.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me.
It's our pleasure. We're really glad to have you.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah. So welcome back. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. And for once, it's only been a few weeks since the last time we got a chance to visit with you.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was, of course, Mythmoot 7. Hopefully a number of our listeners were able to attend virtually. That was Signum's first ever virtual Mythmoot.
Yes.
And it was focused on the theme of defying and defining darkness, which is, frankly, a pretty appropriate theme given the circumstances. We're all defying some very dark times to be there. What we're hoping to get here is for you to tell us a little bit about the decision to move that moot online. When did you realize that was the only way to have it? And what changes did you have to consider in order to make it work? That sort of thing.
Right. Well, we were very slow to do this. And in fact, there were a lot of people who were kind of pressuring me earlier on and being like, oh, we should just, we should make it online. We should make it online. And I was keen to hold out as long as possible. If there were any chance that we could be meeting in person, I wanted to see if we could do it. The first thing we did was postpone it. We normally were scheduled to have it at the end of June, and then we shifted it to the beginning of August. Again, just to kind of maximize our chance of having this together. One of the things that a lot of people said to me at the beginning was they were sort of expressing surprise, like, Signum is all about the online stuff. Why are you guys not like leading the charge to do online events? And I'm like, because we do everything else online. That's exactly why.
Right.
This is our one chance every year, all year, to get together physically, and we cherish that. I mean, it is a huge deal for us. It's a major thing for our community every year. Of course, we love doing our online events, and our online events are great and very meaningful. And certainly you guys know how real and how valuable online communities are and can be.
Absolutely.
And, so that's all great, and obviously we're all in favor of that kind of thing. But getting to at least once a year, getting together physically in the same place to hang out together has had such a positive impact on Signum over the years. So I was loath to lose that if we could possibly avoid it. So we kind of waited and waited and waited. And then it really wasn't until about, June, towards the end of June, that we finally made the decision. We started kind of making preparations a little bit before that. We started approaching, our guests of honor and stuff to sort of see their flexibility. And so that we'd know, when we decided it was time that we had to make the change, that we'd be ready for that. So we did some advanced stuff in the early summer, basically, to be ready. But it wasn't until a couple months before that it was pretty clear. And really, I mean, honestly, the thing that was clear was the lack of clarity. Like what we were hoping for was some kind of enough trend, in the positive direction that we could feel pretty confident. But obviously the worst case scenario is trying to move forward and then suddenly having the state of Virginia say, well, okay, no gatherings of more than 10 people or something, and obviously some kind of change like that at the last second would have been the worst case scenario. So when, as the time approached and it began to be clear that we were not going to achieve the amount of clarity that we would need in order to be really confident that it would be able to happen, that's when we made the decision to shift over.
Makes sense. Yeah. So what did you have to consider to make it work? What sort of changes? You mentioned the keynote speakers, for instance. What were the other things that you had to change that were different? I mean, most of it, I imagine, was the same because you're doing these things online already, but there were some different things that you had to do.
Exactly. So, I mean, the kind of, skeleton of the conference is easy for us to do. I mean, running the sessions as online sessions instead of live sessions. I mean, to be totally honest, in some ways it's easier, simpler because it's what we do all the time, so, running sessions and, being able to interact with audience members and, bring in questions and turn on mics, like all that kind of stuff. This is our normal daily activity. So setting up the actual kind of business end, as it were, of the conference, the papers and presentations and everything did not take much doing. The main thing that we were focused on, and this is really kind of part of the whole Signum deal from the beginning, was one of the things we've always done at Signum is try to say, what are some of the things that are most important about the normal, like in-person and brick and mortar experience, whether you're talking about classroom education or in this case, talking about a conference? What are the things that we value most, right? What are the things that we feel are really most important? And then we ask, how can we try to achieve those things? We know it's not the same, right? It's you're never going to have the same experience doing things online than you have when you do things in person. But are there ways in which we can try to capture that? So again, way back from the beginning at the founding of Signum, the question was how to try to capture and maintain as much as possible of the live classroom interaction, between teacher and students, right? Yeah. And so the entire kind of pedagogical approach of Signum has been to try to find ways to utilize well the online tools that we have in order to try to capture that kind of thing as much as we could. So it's the same kind of thing with the conference approach. And the number one thing that we came up with, that we were talking about when thinking through, what are the things that we want to capture? Our primary answer was the community element, right? Just getting to connect with people and see people again whom you haven't seen in a year. And, how can we just make this not just another, online symposium or, like we run all the time, or like, one of my weekly broadcasts or something like that. Right. How do we make this special in the, in some of the ways in which Mythmoot is special? And so, we began to, to sort of think through and experiment with ways that we could try to do that. And so the two, we then, apply our creativity to, our experience with online mechanisms, various, social and interactive mechanisms to try to find ways to best do that. So, the two things that we did that I thought worked really well at Mythmoot, one was creating our Slack session. So we set up a special Slack workspace to enable there to be a common hangout space for everybody so that people could chat back and forth. People could be talking like the kind of conversations you have in the halls with people, right? In the backs of rooms. There was, of course, an additional feature. I mean, as often happens when you translate this stuff to online, you find that some of the online tools enable a kind of, interaction that is superior, like more actually than you get. Yeah. So, in particular, the kind of running discussions and commentaries and things that ended up happening during talks,
Yeah, absolutely. That was so much fun.
It was a lot of fun. Normally that doesn't happen, of course. Normally we discourage that sort of thing.
Of course.
full-on conversations.
That's
while
what's
somebody
so
else is
cool about it
talking.
was
Yeah.
that we could participate in the conversation and it wasn't disruptive. At least I don't think it was disruptive to the speakers. Yeah.
No, exactly. And I mean, in times when I was speaking, I was always trying to watch both the official, sort of question submission spot and also the conversation, just to kind of keep an eye on it and see if
you're a
there were
much more
things.
experienced presenter. I think a lot of the others were very focused on their own screens, just trying to get through their presentation. So they weren't distracted by Slack, which is good. It was good.
No, it's very good. So, so I thought that the idea, the idea of running a special Slack workspace worked out really well. And I think that as people, adjust to that more as we do future, and we're already planning one of our regional moots in the fall is already, fully prepared to go as an online moot. What normally is our middle moot in the Midwest, hosted in Kansas City, will be virtually hosted from Kansas City this year.
Gotcha.
So that's coming up in the middle of October. And my hope is that, one of the things that I kind of hoped would happen through our Slack interface, which didn't happen as much as I expected, was direct messaging. So, through Slack, you can set up a one-on-one conversation with folks and even, one-on-one voice and video calls.
That's correct.
And that was utilized far less than I expected. And I think this is just kind of a familiarity thing. People were mostly focused on the large group discussions because that was kind of the most easy and obvious thing. And a lot of people weren't really comfortable with the tool. But I think as people get more comfortable with it, that would be a really great way to just sort of, I was kind of fully prepared. I ended up just sort of participating in the general chats more. I was sort of preparing myself during Mythmoot to spend a lot of my time,
for the onslaught of one-on-one direct messaging.
DMing back and forth with like 10 people at once, individual messages. And that happened a lot less. It happened some, but it did happen a lot less than I expected. So that's the kind of thing that I think will probably happen more as people adjust to that more. Yeah,
exactly.
So that was really good. And of course, the other thing that we did apart from the Slack workspace was being very sort of persistent in setting up side channels, video chat channels that people could join in, which were sort of the equivalent of like those circles of people that gather in the back of the room to talk between sessions, or we always talked about the fire pits.
Yes.
Because at the NCC, the National Conference Center, where we normally hold Mythmoot, they have these outdoor fire pits that are a lot of fun. And after the festivities, we always retire out there and
until the sun comes up. From what I understand,
pretty much. Yeah. Well, actually, until they turn the fires off, which they like kill
3 in the morning, I think,
on the fire pits. At about 3 in the morning. So
go home, nerds.
Exactly.
You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here.
But anyway, so we definitely did that. And again, there's some ways, I'm already thinking about some ways in which we can maybe, sort of alter our, utilize the interfaces a little bit differently in some ways to sort of facilitate some even more flexible thing. Like again, one of the things that would normally happen, of course, in those environments that didn't happen as much was, you'd have like a whole bunch of people. So there'd be like, 15, 20 people all sitting around the fire pit, but it sort of very naturally breaks down into sort of smaller side conversation. Sometimes there's full group conversations, but often, it will kind of split off to 4 people over here talking and, 3 people over there talking. And, I always really value that opportunity to connect, not just with the whole group of people, but and not just with individuals, but with, clusters of people.
Groups.
Small groups, right.
So, thinking about ways in which we can kind of accommodate that a little bit better and without, forcing it, enabling it still to be sort of spontaneous. But anyway, the goal with these things was just, to create a real conference experience, that it wouldn't just be like, so for these few days, there are going to be a bunch of talks broadcast that you might want to listen to, or you might want to listen to asynchronously after the fact. Like that, if all we had was that, then we wouldn't have anything like the real conference experience. And so we wanted to make it, that weekend, this sort of pretty fully immersive, though of course more flexible. You could easier to walk away and do other things.
True.
If you had to, but to make it a more immersive conference experience where you were really there. And that really seemed to work very well. I felt that it was at the end of the weekend, you definitely had that same feeling at the end of Mythmoot that you always have at the end of Mythmoot. Like we have spent these days together, and we have, really sort of, enjoyed this time of community together. And so I was really pleased as a whole by the way that we were able to do that. And that was by far, again, I knew the other stuff would be fine. I mean, maybe that's just kind of cocky, but I knew that the presentations and stuff, all that stuff was going to be fine.
It ain't bragging if you can back it up.
Well, so, it's like I said, it's what we normally. It's not to say there are never any problems, but again, it's
true.
It's not what it's what we normally do, and that stuff did all work fine. Indeed, in some ways, it was a lot simpler because last year we introduced Mootcast so that we could have remote and asynchronous attendance at all of our sessions. So we were trying to balance the live, so we'd have a room with, people standing in the front and people sitting in the chairs. And then we'd have in each of our breakout sessions, a recording set up to be live broadcasting and recording the session while it was going on, and as you guys can imagine, like the audio visual complications of this, it's balancing the microphone in the room with the microphone feed into the computer and all this other stuff. That was way more complicated than just broadcasting the session.
Having people record, just recording the Zoom session
in one place,
We totally get that. Yeah. You're right, though. It did go well. In fact, I mean, that really answered my next question was, how do you think all those things went, those in-person moot events? But you described them. It was very much that same feeling at the end of, it's over. I have to go home now. Oh, wait, I am home.
I have to go upstairs now. Yeah.
Right. It really did. And I felt like there were times when I would hear the kids, doing something in the next room and calling for me and something. And I would suddenly realize, oh, wait, I'm actually at home right now. Hang on. I better walk away from my computer, go deal with this crisis, and then I'll come back. It was great.
Except for the dancing, that was terrible. But that was just...
I'm sorry I missed that. I'm
not sorry you missed it, Shawn.
It was great. And it's
eternally humiliating. Yes, it was great.
No, and I'm not saying that I wouldn't want you to think, Alan, that anyone is going to be retaining that video footage for any reason.
Corey, my email address. You can send that.
No, that was great. I mean, that was, of course, so we did go well beyond, just the regular social things. The dance party was probably my favorite part because it's been a tradition. Serena Higgins, of course, a very active member of the Signum community, and she is also a very active ballroom dancer. And so from the beginning, it's been a Mythmoot tradition for several years now to not only have a dance party, but Serena usually is there and will, do instructional sessions and stuff. And she gets everybody doing, we've done line dances and we've done reels and we've done one of my favorite memories from all Mythmoots is still doing the foxtrot with Verlin Flieger.
Man.
How amazing is that?
That was awesome. That was really awesome.
That's a bucket list item right there.
Yeah, it was great. It was really great. So anyway, that's big. And the fact that, Serena had, we still did it, and actually we had more participation. We had more people out on the dance floor, the virtual dance floor, following, we were, doing, we're doing video Rumba lessons and stuff. And it was really cool. So and those kinds of things. And again, not only did we have many people participating, but then we had a bunch of other people still doing running commentary in the Slack channels.
Yes, we did. Yes, we did. And I can assure you that there were some people taking advantage of the direct messaging feature at that time as well.
I can believe it.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, Alan, you were really struggling against some severe circumstantial challenges. I mean, you were trying to dance in a very small room.
Yeah.
So
my office is not large. It's bigger than my booth, but that's not saying.
Yeah. So that was, you were very intrepid in your perseverance there.
More against my entire lack of rhythm, rather than the size of the room. I'm sure I could have compensated had I possessed any of that. But it was worth it. It was fun to try. So,
well, I'm glad the tales of your dancing will continue to live on, and possibly video as well.
Yeah. No. Please no.
Well, speaking of participation, Corey, one upside to the virtual environment that I kind of noticed was that it seemed like we had attendees joining the Moot from all over the world. I know we had people there from the UK, we had people from Asia and Australia who were actually literally defying the darkness by joining sessions in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
How do you feel the online format affected international attendance? Do you feel like there were more people joining from overseas than usual because it was easier? You think it was less?
Definitely.
Or you think it was about the same?
Definitely, yeah. So as I said, last year was the first year that we opened it up with the Mootcast edition. And again, the point of Mootcast, we had no aspirations last year to make Mootcast be that kind of, capturing the conference experience.
Right.
But we knew we knew that we have members of our community from all over the world, and we knew that many of them just can't, would love to come join us, but can't make it. And so we wanted to give them an option which would enable them at least they couldn't be there for the conference, and so they're going to miss the conference experience, but at least they could still attend the sessions and they could still get the recordings. And that was, we also did, because we were doing the broadcasting, we also did capture and record all of the sessions, all the paper sessions and the keynote sessions and everything. And we made those available through an archive, both to everybody who participated in the conference and everybody who signed up for Mootcast. So that was our first effort to enable global participation on some level. And we had a wonderful response to Mootcast last year. We ended up almost, not quite, but almost doubling. We had almost as many Mootcast attendees as we had live attendees. I always actually hate opposing online with live, as if the online people are dead or something, they're live people too. So I shouldn't say, the people who are with us live, people who are with us in person. I'm having all these nomenclature issues, and I've been doing that. People always also want to use the word virtual, talking about doing things virtually. And I'm like, no, we're not virtually doing it. We're actually doing it. We're just doing it over the internet.
Yeah,
it's not
way to put it.
Actually virtual. But anyway, so I've been trying to break myself of those habits too. Anyway, point is, we started doing this with Mootcast last year, and it was an excellent thing. And we had been excited anyway to do that again and to see if there were some ways in which we could expand it and improve that some. And of course, we ended up totally transforming it. We still had basically the two different enrollment levels. The Mootcast, which was pretty much the same as last year, you could attend the sessions either live or you could attend asynchronously, just get the archive recordings afterwards. And then we had the sort of higher level of enrollment, which we called Moot Hub. That was the new level, and that was the full virtual attendance. See, I did it again. That's the full online attendance version. And so the people who were signed up for Moot Hub were in the Slack channels and able to participate in the in-between, fire pit meetings and stuff like that. And again, the primary difference there, the reason that we had that difference is we knew some people weren't going to be able to attend synchronously, they just weren't going to be able to, and so they would miss all that experience anyway. So, why get the bigger chunk for that? That they could just pay less and get the asynchronous stuff.
Yeah.
And anyway, so we introduced those two levels. It definitely enabled us to bring in, more people. There were many more people who were able to enjoy the real conference experience. And this was something I heard from several people. I've always wished that I could come to Mythmoot, and this year I felt like I was there, and I'm so excited that we were able to do that. And so, one of the things that we've been reflecting on is, we can't go back to not doing that again. Now that we've done this, when we go back to doing in-person moots, which we're certainly going to do as soon as we possibly can, we're not going to go away from this entirely. It's definitely, they're never going to be quite the same again. So anyway, I think that we are definitely going to be thinking about some ways. We're not yet really decided what it's going to mean for in-person Mythmoots. Some of the things are definitely going to be different. We would definitely like to have, Moot Hub or some version of Moot Hub continue because we do want to make it more accessible. Accessibility is one of the things that is one of Signum's principles. We really want to make sure that folks can get there. It's not just a sort of a club for folks who can make it, to the site.
Right.
That is always the best. But, people can't or for whatever reason can't travel. We want to include them. So that was definitely a major perk of this year. And we're definitely going to be looking to see how we can continue to make that possible in the future.
That's great. And I love the idea that you're learning from this experience and thinking of ways to enhance the in-person moots going forward. I think that's sort of a best possible case from all of this, right?
Yeah.
Just to find new ways to get the message out there to more people.
Exactly. And it's tricky because, of course, one of my concerns is that, we don't want to build the online, again, still at their hearts, the moots are designed to be in-person events. That's the point of them, right? It's for us to be able to connect with people in person. And we are very much hoping and looking forward to going back to that someday. We don't want to lose this experience. We do want to make these accessible to everybody, but we have to make sure that we don't compromise the in-person thing. Like just to kind of make an exaggerated version of the potential problem, right? If like in future Mythmoots, everybody comes to Virginia and then just like sits around in separate rooms texting each other on Slack on their phones, like
right, yeah.
The real event isn't going to be the same anymore, right? And another even sort of immediate challenge is our regional moots, right? We started not just our Mythmoot program, but we've, for several years now, we've been doing our regional moot program, which has been wonderful, which is in part to try to reach out to folks who can't make it to our annual Mythmoot, to do these small one-day events, all over the place, all over the country and in various places around the world to encourage people from that region. Usually people drive, up to, even 4, 5, 6 hours to come in. So, usually we try to site these at places that are within reach of a couple different, urban areas and stuff and, get people to come in. So those have been really great and wonderful opportunities to, get people from these different regions together. And several of these events have been going now for 3 or 4 years. And so there's a really good sort of separate community of like folks who come together for Tex Moot, Shawn, as you've been able to do, or for SoCal Moot, Alan, as you've been able to join us for that. And like the people come together for Middle Moot, in the Midwest and, and others that have been growing and been developing over the last few years. Well, okay. So we definitely are going to have to do some of those online completely to begin with, because we still can't meet in person, but also again, even when we want to make sure that these are going to be accessible to folks, because we know that even when we are able to meet together, there will still be people who can't or who aren't comfortable. And we want to make sure that we don't exclude them. So we've never really done any kind of an online footprint for our regional events at all. They've just been in person. And we're definitely going to be adding that, but that adds a completely new dimension, right? Which really changes the texture of that event. Instead of having a small, intimate gathering of like 25 to 50 people from the area, who get together year after year, to now have that group of people accompanied by an unknown number of dozens of people from everywhere else around the world. Right. It makes it a different.
The feel completely, doesn't it?
It really does. It really does. And, again, it's not like I don't think that like exclusivity, keeping out everybody who's not from Texas when we do Tex Moot, for instance, it's not like that's the point, It's not like exclusivity is a good thing. And, but it is going to really change it. And so that's going to be one of the challenges that we're going to be looking at as we move forward, both during this fall when we're planning to continue, online only events, probably at least through the end of the year. And then even next year when we're hoping to be able to transition back into doing in-person events, we're going to be having to think about and exploring some new things about, how that's going to look.
Yeah. Well, and there's just something special about the regional moots, just knowing that the people that you're meeting there are from nearby. You can become in-person friends with people.
Absolutely. Yeah. Wanting to help encourage and support local groups, is something that we really have been excited to be a part of the regional groups. I mean, I would point to Mythmoot. In the very first Mythmoot, I met Robbie Park, who is the president of the Tolkien Society of Kansas City. Oh, yeah. She's a wonderful organizer and was doing great things there. But, they didn't have a whole lot of members at that time. And it has been, our first Mythmoot was something which really kind of helped, I think, to kind of bring some people together, to introduce some other folks to her and the stuff that was going on down there in Kansas City. And then in the second year, they hosted it in Kansas City. Mythmoot, and it was a big event which brought a lot of people together down there. And so, I'm not saying that it's all thanks to Mythmoot, but they, it has been, it has really helped to kind of bring folks together and introduce. And I remember, this past year, which was our third Mythmoot, there were a bunch of people who would find out about, what was going on down in Kansas City and say, hey, how can we be a part of that? Or how can we start a group like that up here in Iowa or up in, Minneapolis or, the various other places where people were coming from. So yeah, being able just to connect with, to find, your tribe, right. And know that they're nearby. That's something that's a really important thing for communities. And that definitely was one of the things we wanted to help facilitate through the regional moots. And we don't want to lose that. We don't want to lose that feeling in regional moots.
Right.
Agreed.
Yeah. Well, it was certainly a great time at Mythmoot, and we're definitely looking forward to the next one next year or the next regional moot. And we would definitely encourage our listeners to check that out wherever they are. Do. And Corey, I did have about 4 questions here about M&M, but unfortunately, I think we've already taken enough of your time. So
Alan, maybe that is a can of worms you probably don't want to open at this point in the interview. Yes.
We'll have you back on and do maybe a full show.
Hey, I'm game. Yeah. I'm game.
I know. I look forward to it.
All right. Well, thank you, Corey, so much for joining us. It is always a pleasure to have you on the show. We are looking forward to actually having you back at some point for a full episode again soon. I'm not sure when, but
that would be definitely a lot of fun.
All right. We'll consider this your continued standing invitation.
Thanks very much.
Thanks again, Corey.
Well, with our guests gone and Barnum cleaning up, we are out of time for questions from the bag tonight. But even still, the talk continues all night long at the Prancing Pony.
Yes, it does. Our amazing listener community keeps the conversation going in all of our social media spaces. At our common room on Facebook, you'll find comments, questions, corrections, and more on every episode, as well as updates from us throughout the week. Just look for the Prancing Pony Podcast on Facebook.
And we also have some really good discussions going on over on our subreddit. You can find us there at r/PrancingPonyPod.
And you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram, both with the handle @PrancingPonyPod. And if you're enjoying the show, please share us and consider giving us a review on Apple Podcasts.
And thank you for that. Now, if you want exclusive content, postscripts, full bonus episodes, live Discord events with Shawn and me, and episodes without digital ads, then check out patreon.com/PrancingPonyPod, where you can support the show by joining the Fellowship of the Podcast.
Now, before we wrap up, all this talk of digital moots and the Tolkien community has kind of gotten us thinking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know that's a dangerous thing, but it's true. Fact is, though, we have been thinking about a digital PPP moot for some time now.
Dun, dun, dun. Now, we don't want you getting too excited just yet. It's still very much in the planning stages.
Very much.
We are hoping to pull something together for maybe March or April of 2021.
Yeah, we'd like to do that. So as we know more, as we figure out what we're doing and when, we're going to be sure to tell you here on the show. But because of our production timeline, if you want the fastest and latest updates, you're going to want to follow us on social media.
That's right.
Now, folks, that wraps it up for another episode of the Prancing Pony Podcast. Now, be sure to join us again next week when we subject ourselves to continued public humiliation at the hands of our patrons when we host our 12th quarterly Questions After Nightfall.
Those are always a lot of fun, even for us, although they can be quite painful in the moment.
A little bit.
And you're not going to want to miss that. Now, we also want to take a moment to thank our patrons at the Kierdance contribution tier. That'll be James in Virginia, Tamsin in Minnesota, Chad in Texas, Lance in New Jersey, Paul in Colorado, Jerry in Texas, Bruce in California, Mario in Utah, Seth in Texas, Ella in California, Joseph in Texas, Kathy from North Carolina, Lori from Washington, Josh Lahoma, where the wind comes sweeping down the plains in Oklahoma, Carlos in California, and Brian from the UK. Thank you all so much for your support.
And we also want to thank the team that helps make this show better. Now, that would include our Barliman, Becca Davis, our producer, Jordan Rennells, our social media manager, Casey Hilsey, our Patreon community coordinator, Katie McKenna, and website guru, Phil Dean.
This show wouldn't be what it is without both our supporters and our teammates, so thank you all. Now, be sure you don't miss any episodes of the Prancing Pony Podcast. Subscribe to the show through Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app.
And one last thing as always, don't forget to send your thoughts, comments, and most of all, your best digital mood ideas to Barliman at theprancingponypodcast.com.
Barliman's gotten a lot more reliable in recent days. But
we actually have a Barliman now, so yes.
That's true. But we do get a lot of emails, so we'll get to you as soon as we can. And your question or comment may be featured on a future episode.
Now, as always, this has been far too short a time to spend among such excellent and admirable listeners. But until next time,
farewell, friends.